Cans off. Weld a nut on what's left. Heat 'em up. Got them all out. Make better maracas than they do air cans. Yeah, one still intact. That way we can send it to MGM for them to make a new one and replicate it. Gotta rip this power steering ram off the A car. Bring her up to Haverhill. The seal's weeping a little bit, and since it's allowing just that little bit to weep out, it's sucking air into and sending up the lines and making it come out of the power steering reservoir every now and again. So time to get these crusty ass filters off. It's gonna be fun. And send her off. This one's different. I don't know how he's gonna get this gland off. Water's been getting in the system somewhere. Either the leaking seal with the ram, or at the reservoir cap that the guy had taped off. Doesn't really seal that well. So it's one of the two. Between 87 and now, water got in there. She's all stripped down, ready for the hydraulic shop. And he's gonna have to cross hatch the inside because of water in the oil. Obviously we got it. He said he wants to do a new rod. It's gonna cost a little bit, but I'd rather do it right. The Autocar steering cylinder all rebuilt. To like $1,100, all new seals, rod, and then they primed it. The existing threads were M24 times 1.5. That's what's in there. So I had to go to a machine shop and get these sleeves machined. And so it went from that thread to these thicker 1.25 by 12. And then that way, you can get these. These are the only tie rods that fit the taper on these old Autocars. So you gotta do what you gotta do to adapt it. But I still got some fabbing to do to make it work. I gotta cut these shorter. But just figured I'd show you so far how I'm making it work. Just gonna weld this under here, clamp it. Here's how much meat I had to cut off. This is on the 462 ES 325R. You can't find these ones anymore, so this is the other one, the Moog ES 325R. So what you're gonna do is take these bolts out, cut all this meat off, grind it all so it's just looking like that. Cut it to length, and then just find one of these, weld it on, extend that slit, and you're all good. just in case I can't find any torque specs. You know, some of these you have to tighten to 200 foot-pounds, then back off, spin it, and then back to like 100 foot-pounds and stuff. But just in case, the edge of the locking nut is just about flush with the end of the spindle. So we'll see. Here's the outer bearing, SKF. Holy shit, dude. I had to beat that shit off with the hammer so bad. Woo! Alright, there's the wedge brakes. I guess that was terrible. Should probably slap new ones in there anyway. A little before action. Showing her in her crusty state. Alright, so the backing plate's all painted. We're all set to rebuild the adjusters and the plungers. Here's all your parts. So the first thing you want to start with is your keepers and your pawls. And you know, I don't know the exact terms for these, I just know what they do in a sense. There's no grippers left that, you know, really work on these, and most of the shops haven't seen these for 7 to 10 years, so we're learning together on this, you know what I mean? So with this side, these are like stationary plungers. So what happens is these ones just have a keeper basically for the sleeve. You can see, right, that's nothing special, it's just a solid piece of steel. Whereas on the other side, there's supposed to be a piece like that, and there's the adjuster, right? So it's opposite. There's adjuster, stationary, stationary, adjuster. And on the adjusters, they have paws with teeth. So with the seals, you're just gonna take a stiff putty knife, get under it to get it loose, and a really thin pry bar, and pop these up. That's what worked for me. So once those are loose, you see the groove that fits in, the keeper. Also take note, look at the gap on the bottom right, how wide it is on the other side. That's so when the wedge comes through, right, because it's a triangle like that, it pushes it up as it rides on the bottom, right, and then separates your shoes. And obviously just that keeper rides in there and keeps it stationary. Alright, so for the other side, seal off. And there's supposed to be one of these in there, right, which adjusts on the pawl with a self-adjuster on top. So I must have took that out at one point. So all that's left is the adjusting sleeve. So same thing, groove on the bottom, here on the, you know, backside. When the wedge comes through, pushes it up, separates the shoes. Pretty simple. So let me clean these up, I'll pop the other ones off, and we'll get to it. And just remember, you know, it's always opposite. So Alright, so probably the most important thing with the Wedge brakes is the lubricant. The only one I could find was the Euclid lubricant, but you want to coat the inside as much as you can, and then you start dropping everything where it needs to go. So first, the rigid one, right? You want to keep that slit where the keeper goes forward. You grab one of your pieces with the copper crush washer, and thread that in there, right? And then, you know, as you're putting it in, make sure it's in the slit perfectly. Don't force it in there. So on the other side gets an adjuster one. So first, you know, everything's pre-lubed. Same thing, you make sure that slit's in the front. Make sure the collar's on top. It slides in there. Grab one of your adjusting balls, and as long as you put it in the vertical way, it doesn't matter up or down, because it's going to work no matter what. And work it in there. It'll be good. You'll know if, you know, it's in the slit or not. It's not going to go in. You know the keeper's in the slot when it only has so much side-to-side play. From there, you just crush that copper gasket. Well, I mean, washer. You don't go crazy on it. You just snug it up. And same thing over here. Yeah, two different seals. One's higher, one's lower. The higher one goes where the adjuster's gonna go, and the lower one is gonna go on the stationary side. And what I do is I use two of these 90s picks. I can't really do it one-handed, but you know, you get it around, put the picks in there, and just work the seal around, and it'll fall into its groove. And to drive it in, just using a 36 mil. Works pretty good. You just put it on there, you know, get it centered. Once again, one-handed, it's pretty tough, but you get it straight on and then drive it in. Straight on, drive it in, and then you're gonna put your adjusting portion in. Alright, so coming down to the end here, get the new wedges, 12 degrees. You know, they make different angle wedges, 12, 14. You gotta be careful when you're ordering them. What they look like when they're out. It's literally just a wedge. It separates your adjusters, which separate your shoes, and goes against the drum. These are the new air cans. So what I'm guessing happens is you load these up with the lube. You know, you put these in first, but if you look in there, that catches the end of this, right? So I'm guessing these go in here first, a certain way. Yeah, definitely. You can see it only goes in one way for the neck of this thing to feed through. Right, so you load that up with lube, shove that in there, and then what you do, you screw this in, put anti-seize on your threads, till it bottoms out on the back of this, and I'm guessing you just lock that collar. You know, make sure your airline orientations are going to work before you do that, but yeah, that's what I'm guessing, because I can't find anything online on how to set these, but that seems like it makes the most sense. So we'll go for that, because if you tighten it too much, you're already going to be compressing the diaphragm, right? And you don't want that, so that wouldn't make sense. Alright, so like I said, you lube that up as much as you can inside, all throughout the the whole thing. And the reason why it's so important is because if this ever gets jammed up and stays wedged out, your shoes are spread open. There's instances where guys back in the day said they had to cut their drums off just to be able to move the truck. So the more lube, the better. And that's like the number one thing you want to hedge against, is these things ever season up on you. So we know it's in there in the slot because it can't move side to side any. It's where it's got to go. So now we'll put the can on. From Home Depot, this Crescent crowbar, and it's the only thing I found that works, that really can get in there once you pound it from the back and really get under there to pop that seal up. Let's see if we can do one-handed. Once you get the seal started with the crowbar, you want to get a tool like this that really can get the leverage you need. So really finish popping it up. There you go. Here's the outer races and bearings for the hub. This is the inner big boy set. Comes at literally as a set, as you see. There's the big race and the bearing right there. And then the inner seals. So I grab all the races and toss them in the freezer to shrink them, and hopefully set them in today once the paint dries on the hubs. You want to toss them in the freezer the night before, let them shrink up. Try not to piss off the wife too much. You can get a driver kit, or take one of your old ones, grind it, on the outside so it's a little bit smaller, so when you're using it to drive in the new one, it doesn't get stuck in the bore. So, make sure if you're using the old one, you want to grind it down and make it a little bit tighter. Alright, so you lube these up. You gotta lube up a little bit on the outside with some gear oil, drive them in, and get to it. We'll pop the new seals in. These are definitely a different style than the old ones. They got like a rubber gasket instead of that like hydraulic lock one, the old school. And it looks a little bit bigger, but hopefully that doesn't play a huge factor. Maybe a smidge. Anyway, loop up that seal, plop her in, and call it good. For driving the seal, just take your driver. This piece is nice and fits right in the middle. Just tap it in nice and even, and you'll feel when it's bottomed out. Get the bolts through the drum, attach it to the hub. Just about ready. You gotta toss the shoes on the truck and adjust. Slap her on there. Some dudes think it's a little tacky to put covers on the hub to drum bolts, but up here in the Northeast, it's probably one of the smartest things you could do. And if you want to save a little bit of coin in your pocket, why not take a little extra precaution and save your hardware, and that way when you get a service, your brakes and everything, you know, they come off nice and easy. So just load them up with some grease, pop them on there. It's pretty imperative that you clean the shoes because they're directional. You know, you go with the forward drum rotation when you're placing it. So obviously if the drum spins forward, just, you know, you push it down in the clip, line it up with the grooves. We're gonna put a bottom one in, and then we're gonna take a measurement, you know, from outside to outside, and then measure the drum and start making our adjustments to get it real close within the tolerances. And then we'll put our springs on and see if we can't pop those on today. Alright, so usually you have a brake drum caliper that measures outside to outside. This is a 15-inch drum. So what you want to do is set it so you're an eighth shorter than the overall diameter. That way it's a 16th of clearance on both ends. You don't want to put anti-seize where it makes contact on the clip, and then put anti-seize on the rub points on both of them. That way, you know, if the truck sits for a while. So to put the springs on, I just, you know, put a rag on top to protect the lining. And honestly just use this old generic drum brake spring kit. And you gotta kind of twist it because the knuckle on it wants to hit the bottom to be able to snug it up in there. But if you twist it as you're doing it, you know what I mean, you can tuck it up in there, make it work. Pain in the butt, but it's doable. A little ghetto rigging to the cranes on my utility bed, but just gotta make it happen sometimes. Metal pipe, mini chain hoist, get it up there, we'll slide it on, and all without killing your back. That thing weighs, I don't know, it feels like it weighs 140 pounds, but it could be off. It ain't worth it. Alright, so you slide your hub on, turkey baster, 90 weight oil, at least that's what the Autocar calls for. A little bit of 90 weight in the middle first. I wish I showed that, but I had to, you know, get this on there. Slide your outer bearing on, and you got your. So I was wrapping up on day one and really scratching my head because these cans need to seat against the plunger for the wedge brake. Well, this one doesn't want to seat till right about there. Right, that's way too much tension on that line when I go to turn this wheel this way. Rip it right out. So I'm like, alright, I wonder if I can take these clamps and loosen them and turn the faces after I seat the collar for the main body and make these work, especially over here. Alright, look at this one. This one doesn't want to seat both of them over here. I don't want to seat to 180 down. And with the airport down there, it's not going to work. So I had a couple buddies say, you know, with this side, just leave it out that half turn. Well, the problem is over there, say you even cheated that other one over there, just that little bit back. That one's going to actuate a lot sooner than this one. So who's to say the truck wouldn't have pulled left every time you hit the brakes? This one would have had the split-second delay. So what I found out is, I took one of the old ones apart last night. Once you seat these main bodies, lock them down with the collar, you can loosen these all the way. You know, you don't want to fall apart, but loosen them and orientate the face with the, you know, your air fitting exactly where you need it to make it work. And I'll show you what I did with the old one last night to be able to see, to make sure I could do that. Cut the bolt for the clamp, release the pressure slowly, and the cap stayed put. I'm like, that's weird. Well, luckily on wedge service brakes, it's just dual diaphragms. The spring in the wedge assembly is what returns the plunger. So if you can see, this is a dual diaphragm. So it's a one-way actuation, I guess you would call it, which is sweet because that means once you loosen that band, you can orientate these however you need to, which is a huge bonus. So, huge issue resolved. Now that the can's all oriented the way they're supposed to, you cut your 3/8 line to length. Right, obviously make sure your fittings are on first. Ferrules, put them in there. Right, and then you just bring your compression fittings down and snug it up. So that's basically it for the brakes. You don't want them dragging, but you want to adjust it. Remember, you have an adjuster here that's righty-tighty. So when you're going from the back plate, remember to loosen it so it pushes the shoe out. Right. And I'll be able to see it. Right in this hole, you can see the star adjuster wheel. So just make sure, you know, unscrewing it so that way it touches the drum, and just back it off that little bit so it can still glide free. You don't want it dragging. And same thing with the bottom one on the opposite side. Top off your fluid. Alright, 90 weight. And that's it for that. On to the steering.